Hello, everybody. It's Walter, your favorite historian, educator, professor, social studies extraordinaire, and blue-collar scholar. Today's date is October 2nd, 2025. This video is entitled The Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts were a series of laws passed by the British Parliament in May of 1774 in direct response to the act of deliberate domestic terrorism that occurred with the Boston Tea Party of 1773. Specifically, these laws were designed for two reasons. First, to punish the colony of Massachusetts for the Boston Tea Party, and two, to serve as a stern warning to the other 12 colonies not to follow along the same disruptive, disorderly, and unacceptable conduct path as Massachusetts. Now, there were 4 intolerable acts. Some would say 5, but the 5th one that we get to was not really related to the rest of them, but it was passed roughly at the same time and grouped with them, so it is often considered to be part of the bunch. Okay, the 4 acts were as follows. First, the Boston Port Act. Second, the Massachusetts Government Act. Third, the Massachusetts Justice Act. Fourth, the Quartering Act. And the 5th, debatable one, the Quebec Act. Let's go through them all right quick. First, the Boston Port Act closed the city of Boston to any commerce until the colony paid back the total amount of money lost through the damaged tea in the Boston Tea Party of December 1773. Okay? A very expensive endeavor indeed. Number 2, the Massachusetts Government Act revoked the colony's charter, mandated that the colony of Massachusetts have a royal governor, and it also served to prohibit town meetings, which are a very big thing in New England, without the governor's permission. Town meetings were seen as places where colonists could conspire to commit more treasonous acts against Great Britain. Okay? Number 3, the Massachusetts Government Act mandated that certain crimes be tried in England itself or other colonies, but not in Massachusetts. This was done to ensure that criminals, more likely than not, would receive their just sentence versus being acquitted in Massachusetts. Fourth, the Quartering Act required that British troops be housed in any available quarters in the colonies. That could be private homes, hostels, businesses, and anything. But the primary irking nature of this law was colonists quite often were forced to house British soldiers in their own homes at their own expense. Thus, that includes feeding and clothing these British soldiers. And if the budget was already tight for the household, this pushed a lot of people over the edge. Now, the 5th one that I mentioned earlier, the Quebec Act, expanded the boundaries of the province of Quebec in Canada. All right. Now, this act specifically wasn't aimed at theoretically punishing Massachusetts or any of the other colonies, but I will make the argument that the law had the effect of sort of being having a petty nature to it and expanding the size of a predominantly Roman Catholic colony, Quebec, against the smaller Protestant American colonies. Okay, and that definitely rubbed New Englanders the wrong way. Okay, so these are the 5 intolerable acts. Now, again, they had the effect of punishing Massachusetts and serving as a warning to the rest of the colonies not to emulate Massachusetts' behavior. I gave this analogy to my class, which makes perfect sense for this. Rather than, encourage division among the colonies, it actually brought the other 12 closer to Massachusetts and caused the rest of them to unite against a common, now being perceived as a common pariah, Great Britain. Okay, kind of like 13 siblings and the parent is being overly abusive to one of them, and the other 12 unite with the sibling that's being abused against the abusive parent. Okay, and that is exactly what happened. The other colonies absolutely positively came to the aid of Massachusetts here, financially and otherwise, all right? The tremendous amount of resentment that came from the Intolerable Acts led to the formation of the First Continental Congress in September of 1774, where, among other things, the colonies demanded the repeal of the Intolerable Acts and a return to a more peaceful status quo to promote reconciliation and a warming of relations with Great Britain. All right, Great Britain did not oblige these requests from the colonies, which further led to a fracture and eventually a total desire from the colonies to later split from Great Britain altogether, with the onset of the American Revolution in April of 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord, in which case it was obvious that there was no further hope of reconciliation with Great Britain. The only option at that point was complete and total independence. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter, so please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to engage in pleasant, peaceful dialogue with you. Thanks so much for listening to this video on the Intolerable Acts. Stay tuned for more great videos on American history. Take care of yourself, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you at the next video. Professor Shelton, the Blue Collar Scholar, out.